the possibility of adding a project language search or filter to GitLab. So at the moment, bizarrely, you can actually do a code search based on language, although that's behind a feature flag. But you can't just search for projects based on the language. Yet when you go into a project, you get a nice breakdown of the languages that are present in the project. But you can't search or filter the projects list based on that, which would be super handy for potentially open source contributors that were just looking for I say random project, but yeah, a project to kind of have a bit of a poke in. So yeah, let's get stuck in. Has anyone, Andrew, Raymond, I know you started sort of talking about project topics, and yes, that thought did cross my mind, but it is definitely a string and sellotape hacky solution to be like, right, let's duplicate the data into project topics because we can already search on project topics. Would you agree?
I think...
Go for it.
I was going to say, I think the actual hacky solution is implementing yet another way to search by some arbitrary thing.
But it's not an arbitrary thing, right? It's a very specific thing.
In this case, yes, but there are already topics for different languages to search by. So what I was saying in the Discord earlier on was that just adding another way to search might not be the best solution. And instead, it might be better to either suggest or automatically apply topics to a project if there's a certain percentage of code usage within that project. So using the GitLab repository as the example, that has 67% Ruby, I think it is.
Yeah.
So we'll just automatically apply the topic of Ruby to that project, because I think the only topic that the GitLab project has is the hackathon, Hacktoberfest.
Yeah, I did a search specifically to because that was really my first, I don't know if idea is the right term, but my first port of call was like, oh, do we use topics to tag the GitLab projects with Ruby, with Golang, with that kind of thing, so that we could use that. And then, yeah, it kind of led me to thinking that's not really the right approach. I feel like this is something really specific, and it's a really interesting argument because it's the same thing as custom fields, right? Where you can say, yeah, custom fields are brilliant because you can use them for anything you want, and it gives you that ultimate kind of flexibility to bastardize the system. I've used that term very deliberately there. However, if you have a system that's deliberately built to be able to do what you're looking for, so let's say it's the severity of an issue, and based on the severity, it has certain impacts and business logic associated with it. And the same thing, I guess, with the kind of language search. We've already got this concept of the language of a project, and it seems to make sense to piggyback off of that directly rather than indirectly by kind of replicating. And then we're going to have what, like a worker or something that continually keeps updating the topics. And
there's already a worker that's updating the percentage of language usage.
Oh, interesting.
I would imagine.
Could you
the other thing,
have a look and see in your GDKs if you can see the language bar, if that's the right term? I can see it on GitLab.com, but don't see it when I go in repositories in my GDK. So I'm curious as to.
So I was just having a poke around in my GDK. Topics need to be populated. So the the plus side with using topics
Yeah.
is if we're talking in .com, there's already a whole bunch of pre-populated topics. But self-hosted GitLabs would then need to create those topics to be able to take advantage of something like this.
If memory serves, it's a weird implicit thing where if you tag a project with a topic, and I'm going to try it now, although I appreciate that you can't see me doing it. If you tag a project with a topic, the topic automatically gets created.
Right, gotcha.
I was going to say as well, so the other reason for thinking of using topics for this is to encourage the use of more topics. I don't know what the metrics are for topic usage, but if the GitLab project isn't using it itself, then I'm assuming they're quite low.
Yeah.
KPIs around that as well.
I know it's something that a customer put a lot of work into fairly recently to try and boost the usage and lovability of the feature. I'm not sure exactly what work went into it. I don't know if you can add like icons to topics now and descriptions, and I think it's a bit more feature rich than it was.
Yeah, you can.
So, well, let's just start doing a bit of digging to find, assuming you guys don't already know the answer to this, in terms of where the language is, like is it stored in a table, and that kind of how does it get populated, and I guess we need to understand a bit about that before we can kind of move forward, regardless of whether we're going to use, whether we're going to invent something new or whether we're just going to populate tags automatically using it. So this is, I saw this class attached to the language bar on the repo homepage. My question still stands, by the way. If anyone can get it to appear in GDK, let me know, because it's not appearing in my GDK. So that's interesting.
I do have the progress bar on my GDK.
Which project have you gone into?
The flight.
Does everyone else just use flight as their default one?
Yeah, I don't know why, but is it because it's got like more merge requests and other bits and pieces, or
maybe just because it comes up at the top of the pile? Yeah. So mine also has the language bar displayed.
Why doesn't mine then?
Are you looking at a project or a group?
The project.
Is there anything in the repo?
Yeah, it's the flight repo, same as.
All right, I'll poke around at GitLab settings if you want to keep poking at code settings to.
Yeah, let me just we'll just keep digging to try and understand how on earth it works. So, save join language progress. So I guess this is what we want to be looking at. Oh, right in front of me. So it's a div. Its width is the language share. So we need to look at where languages comes from. Project.repository languages. So is that a table? Repository languages. Yes, it's a table. So that should make life reasonably straightforward, I would say.
What user are you using on your GDK? Because if the current user that doesn't have the download code permission, you won't be
No,
able
I'm
to.
logged in as root, same as always.
Okay.
Very weird. It's not a big deal, seeing as we've figured out where the data's coming from. So I guess
You haven't customized your GDK much, have you? Like in terms of like settings, or is it fairly vanilla settings
very,
wise?
very vanilla. Yeah. I think I've even blown the database away and rebuilt it fairly recently as well. But, so yeah, I guess we'll see repository language or languages. Be interested to see if there is anything. Any worker, as you suggested, Andrew, that's currently populating that table? And I've killed.
I'm assuming it would be a worker. I mean, it could just re-update it on commit pushes, I guess.
Sometimes I just want to throw this out the window, honestly. It can't
I'm
even.
surprised you've not got Ruby mine installed.
Yeah, I might. But I just don't understand, why does it do this only when it's being watched? Like, what is this phenomenon that just absolutely destroys a Mac or any computer in general?
I have yet to destroy my Mac. I don't know what you're doing with yours.
Yeah, I never had a crash.
Really? Two in 2 days. 2 in 2 days. It said something about Ethernet, so I'm like, is there an Ethernet port on it?
Don't think so.
No,
have you got a little USB? Have you got a little USB dongle doing wired Ethernet for you?
Well, I've got a USB dock, but there's no Ethernet plugged into it. I mean, I guess there is still an Ethernet, but this is ridiculous.
You're on a MacBook Pro, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yep.
No matter how much money you throw at the problem, it just doesn't go away.
While you're waiting for that, would you mind trying on the Rails console to check because I just checked on mine and I do have all the information on that table.
So out of interest, I've just thrown the docs ref for the repository languages stuff into the Discord.
Cool. Conscious you can't see on the share, so if anyone wants to share it, feel free to do so.
Where's that?
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't tell us that much about it by the looks of things. I can't see how it's populated. I can see that it says that it's only got a limited set of languages it supports, and if you want to add new ones, then you need to do something funky.
But it does say something about excessive CPU use with that. So to determine which languages, so if you go, there's a troubleshooting section there. Let me just share that tab.
Yeah. To determine which languages. GitLab uses Ruby Gem. When it passes a file, the process can use excessive CPU. The gem contains computer files with text extension XML. Can break it. The workaround is to do this.
Cool. I'm sharing that browser
Awesome
thingy. Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, but that doesn't really apply to the GDK.
If you got the wrong.
I think so.
Giving you the. Okay, let me just try sharing that again. Stop sharing that one. That's the wrong browser screen.
Yeah, I can't see anything in there that specifically says how it gets updated, to be honest. Let's see if this has come back to life. Nope. I'm just going to kill it. Maybe it's live share
There
that
we go.
kills it. Relaunch VS Code. Oh, and VS Code has crashed. Excellent.
So our
There was an issue linked to from that page. It looks like it's using Git linguist process.
Yep.
Present large.
But did it say like if it's running like work or any other kind of? I didn't spot anything along those lines, but
Well, the issue is linked to a Gitly issue. So I'm not sure if that means it's part of Gitly. Hang on, what are these? There's some related merge requests. One of them in the GitLab project. Nope, that's just updating documentation.
it's almost like this is. I just don't understand it. It's absolutely bonkers. It's like the computer is programmed to say, no, I'll search for anything, but as soon as you search for repository language, I'm going to die.
Yeah, it does look like the processing is done as part of Gitly.
Repository
Anybody
language.
up to speed on Go?
Can do some basic Go.
I almost don't think. Yeah, I'm almost not worried at this or not that interested. I'm like, well, we've got it in a table, right? So it's all good. We've got a model. Don't need to worry too much, unless you're going down that kind of route of, oh, can we, whilst we're pushing it into this table, can we also duplicate it into the topics table?
I was just trying to work out where that's actually running, if it is on push or on a schedule or something like that.
Yeah,
that's
I guess
really relevant for this, though, isn't it?
Looking, yeah, it depends. I am tempted to give up, if I'm totally honest. Beyond frustrated with it now. I just honestly, these sessions have will be the death of me, I think.
Repository language.
So I think we can get the data easy enough. So yeah, it is. Maybe we do just on the issue tag in whoever would be the relevant group, team, whatever you want to call it, and just ask if they've got any thoughts on sort of hacking topics to do it versus building something a bit more native. I mean, hacking topics maybe could allow us to put something in a bit quicker. Although if we've got to backfill every single project in the whole of GitLab.com, I guess that's quite a migration, right?
I mean, that would be. I mean, I don't think that's a requirement. It would be nice, I guess, but could just let things fill as commits get pushed.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I found that the text repository language service inside app services projects.
you might be quicker just navigating to it.
I think I am. Like, what on earth? App services. Sorry, app services.
That's detect underscore repository underscore languages underscore service. That's not inside a folder.
Detect, did you say?
Yeah, detect repository languages service.
Yeah.
I cannot see that. Can you see that? So inside of app services.
Project.
Okay, I didn't get that bit right. Okay, project. Projects. And then in there, detect that.
There it is.
Cool. To be honest, I think I'm going to give up, because if I can't do a search to find out where this is being called from and so on and so forth, it's absolutely pointless me presenting. Marco, is your connection
Do it
or
the command line way.
No. Would anyone else like to spin and share their screen?
Sorry, I didn't really get what you said.
Can you share your screen, Marco? You seem to be having some success poking around.
Yeah, I can. Let's try.
How? Hey, a bit early. Nice of you to join us. We are busy taking a look at a particular issue that might allow us to explore projects by language. So
Okay.
currently,
Wait, just a
wow,
moment.
that's like all the recursion.
Yeah. I'm gonna live share with you my instance.
So how do I put a comment onto Twitch from here?
So there's a chat on the right-hand side. I don't know if you can see that.
We can't post
From here.
messages there because we are only guests.
Okay. Okay.
So
So I could sign into Twitch and do it.
yeah.
Yes, it is a new feature. Bingo. So so if you look in Discord on the Tuesday pairing thread under contribute, we've posted the link most recently there. Just popped it in again. That might be the easiest way.
Right. Where are you?
Were you able to join the live share?
I haven't tried actually.
Okay.
Because I can see your screen all right, so that's probably enough at the moment.
Okay. I think I found it because there's this detect repository language worker.
Awesome, yeah.
But then,
But then it's a case of keep going back up the chain is what I guess I was interested. Although, yeah, I suppose that's almost enough, but I'm still curious to see, yeah, where does this gig? So that's after import. We're probably not that interested. Branch push service. Okay, that sounds good. So it sounds like it's kicked off after a push. Not really interested in that one.
There's also this repository languages services with a perform language detection. Let's keep an eye on this. This is the class itself, and these are the specs.
Okay, cool. So it's mainly when you push. So when you do an import of a project or when you push to a project.
Yeah, and I think that's also something scheduled on with Sidekick, because there's every Sidekick worker spec that's testing this.
But isn't that, maybe I've got this wrong, but isn't that because when you call perform, maybe it isn't. I was going to say when you call perform async, does that then stick it in the queue and then?
Oh, I don't really know how Sidekick works, so I can't help you with that. But
Sidekick. But that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so if we did want to use that, to also push that into
you can
tags, we could.
You can request it to actually extract the languages of the repository, because there's an API calling the repository languages services.
Yeah,
that's going to call this and also persists. Yeah, this is also going to update the table.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what do we do next? Because we found how this is populated.
I guess I'm interested in bouncing a little bit more around whether we think, like, whether we can even come up with a consensus, whether we think it's best to make this more of a native feature or to piggyback off of topics.
I am honestly more leaning towards having this as a feature and not using topics, because I read the discussion between Raymond and Andrew about adding these topics automatically, but then when someone don't want a language to be reported as a topic, you have to remove it manually and then also save it that you don't want that topic automatically added back again. And that's introducing so many complexities that I wonder if it's even worth it, because we have all the data from the database.
Yeah, that's another interesting question, actually. When do we report every language that's so, for example, the GitLab project, which is surprisingly low, I thought it'd be higher. Excuse me, says we've got 1.8% HAML. Would we want this search to surface everything, even if you had like one single like HAML file in a repository with 8 billion other files?
Well, I think an MVC would be to do it over a certain percent. So anything over like 20% of your
I would
repository.
see that being more work than just doing it with any files at all. Do you know what I mean? Because we'd actually have to write that business logic into it.
Yeah, but I mean, well, that's going to be like one line of logic, isn't it? Just to say, because we've got the language, we should have the percentage already. So it's just a case of like looking if that sits over that. As a further iteration, you could maybe have it as a configurable setting at an instance level, and then have a sensible default set.
Yeah, no, that kind of makes sense. I guess what I was thinking is an MVC, I would normally do less work rather than more. I appreciate that one line of code is not a lot, but where do we put that number? We then have to make that decision, right? I don't know. Does anyone fancy throwing a number at the table and seeing if it sticks?
I would just say if it is listed in that, what was it, repository language table?
Oh, so you don't think there should be a minimal?
Yeah.
You don't think there should be?
I mean, I'm assuming that the piece of code that adds that in has a minimum thing.
Threshold.
If you check the GitLab, threshold. If you check the GitLab project, then there's like a tiny bit of gray at the end that's just everything else.
Oh, I didn't notice that actually. You sure that's not just the background color?
No, I mean, I'm assuming it's the background color of the bar because the bar's not been filled in with some other language color.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, that sounds even better if we haven't got to do anything.
And it's also the boring, simple solution.
Absolutely. Awesome. So, Raymond, what was your view on approach, whether to sort of try and piggyback off topics or write something sort of, I don't know, what you want to call it, specific functionality, let's call it?
I think possibly backing off topics kind of makes some sense. We can worry about the maybe look at worrying about the re-adding something. You know, if someone's turned that topic off or whatever at a later stage. My initial concern would be that would the languages that we're detecting in, I mean, pick a project, pick GitLab.
Yep.
Would the languages we're detecting in GitLab match topics that exist currently in .com? Because if there's a topic, I'm guessing there's a topic called Ruby. I'm guessing there's a topic called JavaScript, and if those then match up, then that's all good. Then things will fall into that. But then, are we just going to go create topics? Haml, and is Haml actually part of Ruby or something, or do we not care about that right now?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying. And previously, I don't think there was a topics table, but I think it has now been introduced.
Yeah, so I was poking in GDK, and there's definitely topics, and like you mentioned, if you add a topic to a project, it will add that topic to the instance. So the instance will then get that, and you can merge topics from an instance level.
So I had an idea while you were talking about that of what if we were to use the topic search but not actually create the topic. So if you go on to, where would it even be? I'm not signed in to GitLab, which isn't helpful. So if you go projects and view all projects.
Are you still sharing my screen? Because
yeah, we're seeing your screen.
So do you want me to go somewhere? Or?
Yeah. So can you show us how we currently search for topics? I guess is in the front end.
I actually never done it. I guess this would be
so it's view all projects.
Yeah.
And then there's an explore topics.
Explore topics. Okay, and we can filter by.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that doesn't work quite how I hoped or expected it to.
There's a ton of different Ruby.
That's maybe another.
But maybe that's less of a thing, because maybe by actively building topics by using what languages are in projects, that list of topics will then naturally be populated better, potentially, and curated better. So these ones that have an icon, someone's gone and curated them on .com anyway. So that's great. And obviously, if you've got a self-hosted instance, they'll just be like those top few with just a letter as the sort of icon or avatar of them.
Yeah.
But I suppose actively pushing topics for projects would then help you initially populate your topic database and give you something that you can curate and you can go in and.
So a couple of issues that this is immediately kind of making me think of, although it's interesting what we're looking at here because there are quite a few languages there. But the issue for me is that, okay, if you want to, if what you're looking for is a way to filter by by language, then this is a bit of a pain because you can't just see languages on this screen. You can see any topics. So yes, I think arguably you're less likely to be like, oh, I want to see all the languages so I can then filter by a language. You would probably know the language you wanted to filter for. You would type it in that filter name and then select the relevant topic. But I don't know, it just seems a bit awkward to me. And also, I presume we can't use this in conjunction with anything. If you were to click on Ruby or whatever, so you can then filter by names. So try filtering that list then further. And we know GitLab hasn't got the Ruby topic, so that's not going to come up. But
you're right.
Can we search for one that is on that list? So, Advent of Code or Yeah. Okay, so that doesn't work. Oh,
it does. Yeah, there we go.
The difference is that when you type, it does this kind of thing, but it really doesn't apply it until you press enter.
interesting. Okay.
And if you click on that sort of filter there next to the search box, what is the options there? Can you change that to stars or?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can say so that's your sort. So you can sort by most stars. So if you were to change that now, it would change that sort to most stars. So that you should.
So we're saying I want to contribute to the
top
most
Ruby
popular.
project.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, GDK's in there.
Awesome. Has GDK got much Ruby in it?
Well, yeah.
It's all Ruby, isn't it? It's a Ruby gem.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
That's
that's
amusing, actually.
interesting.
The GitLab Community Edition has
That's
Ruby,
exactly
but
what
the
I
main
just-
GitLab doesn't.
Exactly what I just spotted. I wonder if I can add. Am I going to get told off if I add the Ruby?
You won't be told off.
Who added this?
I definitely cannot add topics to the GitLab project.
So, who added the topic itself? That is curated at an instance level. So once the topic has been added, once you add a topic to a project, that topic then appears in the instance topic database, and you can add the icon, add the description, etc. So
Can I add any topic to any project on GitLab and it will appear in that list?
I believe so. Yeah. Dangerous, right?
So if you add an Espadavate topic to one of your projects, you then should be able to explore that. If you were to create a public project and add that, you should.
No profanities, please, Andrew.
Go on. If you filter by name for a Spada V8.
Yeah.
Fine.
And if you click that, you should get no projects because it's on a private project.
Yeah. Well,
That is interesting, though.
Even for private projects, the topics are public. That makes sense.
Yeah, because the topic is instance level, I suppose. But
yeah.
Also, then interestingly, Andrew, if you wanted to customize that topic or personalize it anyway, you'd probably have to on .com. You'd probably have to log some sort of support query or something to get somebody with.
Yeah, I've just removed that topic. Can you refresh that page? Does it delete topics when they're not in use anymore? No.
I don't believe it does. No.
Why? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah.
So maybe this just remove the link between the project and the topic, but not the topic itself.
Yeah. I suppose you would have to have maybe some sort of Reaper to go in after a period and say, if you've got a project, or if you've got a topic that has no projects associated, and it hasn't had projects associated for X time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would be interested.
You want topics to just keep getting removed constantly.
Yeah, you'd want them to be done over time, I suppose.
I'd be interested to see if we could reach out to the customer who has kind of put all the work into this feature to see whether they use it for languages or if they've got any views on it, I guess.
Well, there are topics for languages, so that makes sense. I mean, another thing that we might do is instead of automatically adding languages just as topics, is just provide a quick way or a suggestion. For example, if you go to a project and you edit the topics of that project, you can have a list of suggested topics based on the languages of the project.
It feels a bit too manual for me. The idea is that we want to be the go-to for open source, and we want all public projects on GitLab to be open and at your fingertips. So if you're I want to come up with a crazy language now, a Visual Basic developer, and you want to contribute to open source, you should be able to go and find a project at the drop of a hat without someone to have made a lot of effort. I know you might argue about a lot of effort. Okay, made any effort to make that possible.
But then raises the question about who actually wants to add topics to their projects.
What the actual use case is for topics, you mean?
No, not the use case, because that's pretty obvious, but just maybe I want to opt out of this feature because I don't want to put any topics on my projects because I'm not interested in it.
Yeah.
So then perhaps what you do is you could potentially look at introducing a project level setting to exclude automatic generation of topics or something for that project.
Yeah, but then we would need to create the settings before creating the job to automatically add the topics to every project on the instance, and then notify everyone that if they want to opt in to this feature, they have to change the setting.
Yeah, so I suppose that's any setting that you add. It's a case of it becomes a discussion whether you add it as a default on or a default off, or add it behind a feature flag first even, and maybe you do it behind a feature flag. So we do it behind a feature flag. Then if you switch the feature flag on in .com, if you switch the feature flag on for a group, it will automatically do it.
I think all of these things.
That would be the sensible way of maybe adding a feature like that, is putting behind that feature flag, so that if there's a big thing that needs to happen, it also wouldn't suddenly create massive load on the database or the system to suddenly start adding a million topics into the database for .com, because now suddenly there's every single language that's detected. Something's got to go and create the topic for that.
I feel like all of this is just more kind of waiting towards it making more sense for it to be a first-class citizen. Something that's made for this purpose, rather than shoehorning it into something that's.
So fine. Let's explore that for a second.
Yeah.
If you turn this into its own, if you make it a first-class citizen as such, and you want to approach it that way, then does what
problems go away?
Well, where does that leave topics? Does topics then get left by the wayside and left for esoteric uses like labeling something for Hacktoberfest and or other things?
That's what I feel like. Topics is more of a deliberate, a really poor choice of words, but you want to what would see the comment there about having an section. So we do already have these languages exposed in a repository languages table, which is awesome. So we've got the data. We're just trying to figure out the best way to surface that data and to be able to search.
And those topics, as they are right now, have an API endpoint, so you can access them via the API. You can, as a instance administrator, you can merge them. So there's already a fairly rich feature set around the topics. So I'm not saying, I'm just exploring the discussion. If you were to create a new feature for this language thing, then you need to add API endpoints for it. You need to have another way of maybe allowing people to switch it on or switch it off, or those other items.
And there's the whole front end as well, just to actually get the search built into the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the piece that we're actually sort of after implementing here, is just that being able to browse things by language, where we've already got the way of browsing things by language. If the person self-identifies, if the person self-identifies their language as a topic, so all we're actually doing here is looking at auto-identifying those topics as languages, all those
we're sort of suggesting doing some duplication in the back end, some automation and duplication in the back end to allow us to leverage existing front end stuff, really, isn't it?
Well, is it duplication?
Yes, we've already got the languages stored in a table, and we're going to copy those languages into another table,
which may or may not already be there.
I'm going to say
so
90% aren't.
For an instance like .com, many of those things already are.
No, they're in the topics table. They're not in the project topics, the relational linking table.
Okay. So the linkage isn't there. But currently, if you were to go and manually add those topics to the project, you'd be adding those.
Absolutely.
You'd be adding that duplication there anyway.
Absolutely.
And there you've got the duplication without the link between that. So if you wanted to add the topic Bob to your project, you could just do that. And with having this automatic linkage there, also there's nothing stopping you from going and adding the topic Bob to your project, or adding the Ruby topic to your project even if there's no Ruby in it.
It's annoying I can't find the. It shouldn't be too hard, but I'm sure there was an epic recently that a customer created to really kind of enhance this feature set for topics, and I'd love to know what their use case is, and whether this does or doesn't align with it. I'm not immediately thinking of loads of great other use cases, but there's something that's really, really saying no to me. I think duplication is possibly the biggest thing. That is an immediate smell there. If we're saying, well, let's just copy all of the data in this table into this table. I realise, I think, Andrew, you raised the fact that what we're saying is we're going to need to introduce a fair amount of new, we're going to need, what would you call it? So some kind of service method to be able to sort and filter by this. And we're going to need maybe new API endpoints or filter options. And we're going to need a new UI widget-y type, some new bits and pieces. But I think that's almost why I want it that way, because heaven forbid we should look at how the way somebody else does it. But, you go onto any other platform and you'll see the list of languages and you pick a language.
Okay, so I was waiting for a break in the discussion there. I actually had a look at a leading competitor. No names mentioned. But they have a topics feature as well. And I can't see a way of searching by language other than via topics.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know how people manage topics on there. They may automate some of it. They may not. I don't know.
You see, I think that topics should be the way to go to filter by language. The only problem that I'm seeing is automatically generating this now without giving we should give the possibility to users to decide whether or not they want to opt in of this feature. Also, and even after that, we could potentially overpopulate the topics, maybe, or maybe not.
So I wish I could find a link to what I was looking at the other day, but I was looking at something. I'm going to find the epic, and if I find the epic, I think I'll find a link to where it's done elsewhere in a much more elegant way. So let's see if I can find that. There was checkboxes on the left-hand side, and it just had like, you know, JavaScript, Ruby, Python, and you just could check the boxes and away you went. The crazy thing is, as I say, we're introducing it so you can actually search like for a code search and filter by language. So it just kind of seems like a really logical, almost like the first step would be to be able to search projects by language. And then the next step would be able to be more even detailed level and search code by language.
Two quick things. Can you show us that stuff that's going to be coming out? Have you got a project where it's enabled so we can actually see what you're talking about? Second thing,
I'll find the epic, but yeah, go on.
Second thing, none of us are the DRI for this feature, area, whatever we call it. So maybe we just post a comment on there and ping whoever the project managers are for topics and searching. I don't know what else.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Get some feedback.
Who is the DRI? I know I said at the beginning that sort of thing, but I feel like this might even become one of those group not owned things. I don't know.
I don't know. It sounds to me it's like something workspacey because it's part of the workspace. So I mean, at the very least, we could ping the workspace guys and just the workspace team and just see who, if they feel it's something under their space. I know that issue that we were looking at is kind of not, but hold on a second. I've got the project topics issue here that introduced a lot of the project topic stuff, which was a community contribution, as I think we mentioned.
Yeah.
And that looks like it's definitely under group workspace. So yeah, if we possibly I'll pop it in here. It was also a MVP release in 14.5.
Sounds about right.
But so that was November last year. So I've just popped the links into Discord.
Just responding to the comments. Sorry, the comments coming through from Twitch. Oh, is that what you were going to say then as well?
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah.
Yeah. Asking there about extending project metadata with their own tags. That's something that's already possible. And that's kind of what we're discussing here. Should we reuse the existing tags, feature topics, that's what it's called, and automatically add tags based on the languages that we detect? Or should we build a whole separate feature that reuses the linguist language? What are they? Parsing, processing,
Identifier.
I guess. Identifier, yeah. And just use the percentage of code within a project to add, to search by that instead. And yeah, I initially thought reusing topics was a good idea, and then I kind of got swayed by Lee and Marco, but now I'm kind of leaning back towards topics. From a user point of view as well, I think that's something we should probably consider that I don't know if we have. Like, is having too many different ways of searching for these things confusing? Like, why? When would I go to topics to search for something versus going to this new search by language kind of thing?
And you know what? That was my thinking when, you know, none of us even knew where to go to search by a topic, albeit that we guessed it pretty easily. I personally think that I would want it so that you either had on the project's landing screen, you had like a languages box itself that you could either tick or untick options or whatever, or when you filter by, and I know this is going to cause absolute havoc, but when you filter by name, you could sort of, because the name filter, I think, searches in multiple places, right? Maybe the description and the slug and the name and the group and other bits and pieces. So yeah, almost be able to type it in there. But did any of you see the epic that I just linked in Discord?
Yeah, add search filtering by programming language.
Yeah, so that's what got me onto this thing in the first place, and got my hopes up. What's the word? That it was there, and then I realised that this is in a completely different place, and this is for code search, and that's not.
So so this is interesting. This would be a search thing, which is great, and search is fantastic. Search, advanced search, at least using the Elasticsearch backed side of things, though, is a premium feature.
And it's completely, like I say, it's kind of actually a lot more complex, and this is what we don't need this. Or this is at least not what we're looking at. Something much from further away.
Fundamental.
Kind of
sort of basic, simpler functionality. Not
but
like.
If you look at that epic, so the screenshot is exactly kind of how I envisaged it, if I'm honest. On the left-hand side of the screenshot in the epic, you've got all the languages. And just being able to pick and choose. But also there's a link to a competitor directly below that, and if you click on that, that is also exactly what I envisage, and that does allow you to just search repositories or projects, as we call them, by language without any additional criteria, which is kind of exactly what I've got in mind. Just a nice way to say, like, hey, I like C#. I want to see C# repositories.
Is that screenshot on the epic taken from an actual page already existing on GitLab?
It is, but it's with the feature flag enabled.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll need to.
And if you look, you're searching in a group, in a project. I think you might be able to go to group level for that search, but you can't search the instance. This is a code search, not a project or repository search. We're nearly at our hour. I think you're right in grabbing a few people in, but I wonder if they're going to have as much difficulty as us as coming to. I thought with 4 people, potentially 5 around the table, we might stand a chance of at least kind of leaning in one direction. But at the moment, I think we're all fairly close to the fence.
Yeah, again, I feel like topics could be the way to go. What I'm not convinced about is how we populate those topics.
I think if we were going to use topics, I would want some more work on topics to surface it a bit better without you having to go to explore topics.
That sounds like a really good idea.
Doesn't it seem weird that it's got its own kind of, like, when you expect just on the projects, explore projects screen there to be like a topics drop down or tick boxes for topics, or I guess maybe they felt the screen was too cluttered. And
like checking out a competitor again, I really like their topics page. It's got nice big things at the top you can click on. It's got a list of popular topics, and it's just a lot easier to find this stuff. Share
a link for that, Andrew, because I'm interested how that compares to the one that I'm looking at the moment, which is nice, but not nice big links about the top showing popular ones and stuff.
So you start off by going to the explore thing at the top of the. Oh, hang on, I sent the wrong link.
So that's topics again. That's not languages.
Yeah,
okay.
But they I mean, they don't have a language thing.
They do, actually. They do.
No, they have a code search language.
You can just search for repositories, which, as far as I'm concerned, are just projects.
Yeah.
But where do you just search for? Like, if I do a search for Ruby, that's not going to find.
I've shared you a link. I think that should work. I'm a bit confused with the UX, UI, how to get to it in the first place. But once you get to it, you can do what you need to do, I think. Oh, I see. You do language : C#. That's all you need.
Yeah.
So I think that's potentially what is being explored in that epic that you showed, is having something like that as part of like search. But if you would just wanted to browse and explore.
Yeah, it seems like they've kind of done it in two. Again, that kind of makes sense now, thinking about it that way. You kind of have topics as a way for exploring and discovering things, but if you know what to look for, then you just search for language : Ruby or whatever. But even,
I don't know if that helps us or not.
This is how Sourcegraph does it. I cannot click links from the sidebar. That's fine.
No, I can click them and then they appear like this.
Context global language Ruby. But again, that's searching for files, isn't it?
Which I suppose this kind of it, like what I've got in my head, kind of is, but it's that you're not specifically saying, oh, I want to find a file containing this. It's like, I want to find a project containing files that contain this. That kind of makes sense. I don't know, that's a bit of a weird.
Yeah, by the way, Sourcegraph does mainly what the other competitor does: language column, then the language.
Okay, I think at this point, I think we should dump our sort of summaries onto the issue. And then put in, DRI or DRIs.
That sounds good, yeah.
I think there must be a way that we can figure out. There's a couple of questions maybe that we need to ask ourselves. Is like, what maybe do we want it to look like? I think that might kind of help us a bit. We'll either, I suppose it might not completely help us, because we might say we want it to look like this, and that's not how topics look, but we can improve topics to then look like this.
I know that there's some work being investigated to refresh the navigation of the whole GitLab.
Right.
I don't know if they thought about something like this, and if they also plan to give a refresh to the search pages, to the project pages, the group pages, and all of those things. But what I mean, I really like how the competitor allows the users to search, and the page, the screenshot that's shown on the Epic, basically that layout and the feature set that you can see on the left, I think that could be made available to everyone. Only if I remember correctly, the only feature that's actually on feature flag on Premium is advanced search, elastic search, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
If we skip that but keep the UI the same way, we could improve it generally, and we could then include both things on the search side of the page, where you have both topics and maybe languages, if we decide to keep those two separate.
So another big limitation that I've just found, or I would call it a limitation, I think, is you can't search based on multiple topics. So if, say, I wanted to find a game that was built using C#, I can't do that because I can search for game or I can search for C#. Again, I guess we can just improve the functionality to be able to do that.
Yeah, but that's mainly the limitation of the search page, because I think that if you had even a drop down with a multiple select option with all the different topics would be enough.
Agreed, yeah. I mean, and maybe if I'm being super ambitious in like a real future iteration, topics could actually belong to some kind of category. So the category would be language, and the language would then have, you'd then have all the topics grouped together. So you could be a bit more deliberate in what you were doing in a way in the future, sort of.
You mean categorizing the topics?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh. That's actually something that Arbitrarily suggested.
Nice,
I mean,
nice.
Having a prefix. Yeah. If those topics are like project tags, which can have a prefix like language column CPP, then maybe it can be a single table after all. Yeah, maybe that's basically categorizing the topics.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. As somebody has always said to me before, no time is wasted time. We've all learned a lot, right? I'm definitely going to dump some stuff on the issue, and it'd be awesome if you all could too. Just to sort of, a couple of ideas and thinkings, and if you're leaning in a certain direction, and then we hope that, was it somebody with was it a stronger compass, or that is used to making these what should be such an easy decision, right? But I guess has massive ramifications based on the direction that we go.
So just a quick one. How difficult do we think would it be to implement at least a mock-up of this and a first pass stab at this in an MR? Because it would be so much more valuable having the discussion around an MR than having then going to a product owner and saying, "Oh, should we do this? Should we do that?" Whereas,
okay, I like it.
If we throw it up around an MR, that gives us the experience around digging the MR and putting the MR up together as well. But then we've then got something tangible to discuss with.
I honestly think that given like I say a day, when do you ever get a day to focus? But a day would be plenty of time to do it. I'm trying to think what I would make it look like if I was to have that day to be able to hack around. I think maybe on the projects page, it's just so cluttered, isn't it? Where would we put it?
I would honestly take that code. I would customize the page that the screenshot on that epic was taken from. I would start from there and add the things that we thing that could be.
The problem is that's the advanced search, which is the Elasticsearch page, and that's a premium feature, and we don't really want this to be in there.
No, but we can take the code from there, just not to start from scratch.
But then that would be a massive. We couldn't just take the code from there, if that makes sense. There's all the stuff that's underneath. I think if you like that design, which I certainly do, so what we do, but then that's redesigning the whole projects page to flip it to be more vertical, like navigation, than horizontal navigation, which is way outside the scope of what we want to. So we just add another drop down and say we just cram it in for now, but then worry about. I think, Raymond, your point is very much like, let's get something that works and can be a point for discussion, like a prototype.
There's actually another option that maybe we didn't think about because we're not designers.
Yeah.
But creating a Figma file, putting down all the layout and behavior that we think could be a good solution, and then discuss over on that. The same thing that Nick did for the time tracking report thing a couple of months ago. Do you remember, Lee?
Cool. Yeah.
That way we wouldn't waste, it's not a waste of time, but we wouldn't waste any time on actually putting that in code.
Do you think it's quicker to build a Figma design, a fake, than it is
not for me, because I don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
For us, it may be
quicker to write the actual
to just write some code.
Leave that carrot dangling. It would be awesome if we can drop. I'm just going to spend a few minutes now dropping something on the issue, so I know what we've kind of discussed, etc. Then I really like the idea of trying to mock it up either in a functional prototype or a Figma design. Either way.
Yeah, the thing about the functional design is that we might not only be working on the front end, because we might need to also expose some backend stuff that could take some time. And
I think we absolutely will, but I just feel like it's not going to be overly complex because we've already got the table and the model and we've got all the stuff in there. So and at the end of the day, if we start hacking at it and it's problematic, then we take a step back and go from there. But let's dump some stuff on the issue, and I'll take the action to see if I got any calls tonight. No, I actually haven't got any meetings tonight, so if I get bored, I may have start some hacking.
Yeah. Also, because if it's only a proof of concept, so we don't actually need to make everything work as expected or write tests that would take weeks.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't need to, pagination doesn't need to work, and various other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Let's dump some of our discussions and ideas and whatnot on the issue, and then I'll see if we can get basic sort of mock-up proof of concept type thing to provide a discussion, to then maybe get the designer and DRI and stuff on to say, like, what do you think of this approach? Awesome. Right, thank you all for your time as always. Fruitful pairing session. Doesn't have to be coding, we're still pairing. And we'll catch up soon.
Should we change the title from live coding to brainstorming?
I think pairing would be good, because we're pairing on issues, pairing on merge requests, pairing on brainstorming, whatever. So good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Catch you later.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.